Okay, we're going to get going. My name is Adam Greco, and I am the ringleader here for the Search Discovery Education community. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining. We're excited to have Jen Lasser and Eric Matisoff on today to talk about some of the cool new features that have been added recently to Adobe Analytics. I will say that for those of you who aren't on the East Coast, we are going through a little bit of a crazy hurricane monsoon. So Jen and Eric are both on the East Coast. So hopefully the weather will cooperate and we won't have any problems. So Jen, if you want to click forward. So just wanted to highlight a couple upcoming SDEC webinars that are going to be coming up related to Adobe Analytics. I'm going to be going way deep starting mid-August into merchandising EVARs, and had so much content that actually had to split it up into two presentations. So we're going to do one mid-August, one mid-September, and then we're going to hit mid-October a fan favorite of Saint classifications. If for any reason you're watching this video and you're not currently a member of the SDEC, there's a link on the right here, just a bit.ly link that you're welcome to join for free and be notified when we have fun analytics webinars like this. And then during the webinar, we're going to have Q&A at the end, but please don't be shy. Go ahead and put your questions in the Q&A area of Zoom. If you put them in the chat, it doesn't actually help us. So please put them in the Q&A area. And even if we don't have time to get to your Q&A, your question here, we will find a way to get the answers to you after the fact if it's in the Q&A area. And Eric and Jen will be tackling those at the end of the session, but you don't have to wait till the end of the session to put your questions in. You can go ahead and start putting them in anytime they pop in your head. So I think that's all I've got. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Jen and Eric.
Thanks, Adam. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you.
Excellent. Well, thank you everybody for coming today. Eric and I are super excited to be here. For me personally, it's been about 4 months, I think, since I've presented in front of a large group. So just bear with me as I try to form coherent sentences. We're going to be hitting all the hot features that we released to Adobe Analytics over the last few months. And we're going to share some resources at the end where you can get even more information on the things that we're going to talk about. So no need to take feverish notes. Hope you guys enjoy some of the content that we have planned. So before we get too far along, my name is Jen Lasser. I'm a Principal Product Manager for Adobe Analytics, and I'm joined by Eric Matisoff, the illustrious Senior Evangelist of Adobe Analytics and Data Science. So in the webinar today, you're going to learn about new features that, one, enable seasoned users to deepen their analysis and share insights more broadly. 2, empower new users to self-serve an analysis workspace. And 3, allow executives to access data at their fingertips. So we have a ton of content planned, and we're just going to get right into it. So starting with seasoned users. As an analyst, we know that time is of the utmost importance to you. And equally important is a smooth, consistent, uninterrupted workflow. So with the features we're about to cover, we want to enable you to deepen the analysis you can do in Workspace so you don't have to break your train of thought or go to another tool. And we want to also enable you to share your insights more broadly with confidence once you're done with your analysis. So with that, I'll turn it over to Eric to hit on our first feature.
Great. Thank you, Jen. And I know we don't normally share videos here, but since this is a search discovery, oh, I can't share my video. Well, you'll have to take my word for it. Since this is a search discovery webinar, I'm wearing an SDI t-shirt, and don't worry, I'll tweet it out so that you can see the cool pic of my ancient SDI shirt. Anyway, from there, what we're gonna focus on is the first relatively new feature just released this year, a few months ago, multiple report suites, where we have the ability to pull multiple report suites, hence the name of the feature, into a single workspace project. And there's a few different ways you can actually take advantage of it. So on the next slide, we can actually see how this is actually done. So in the top right of every panel, just as you can see within the video here, you have the opportunity to click and select any report suite that you like. And it looks like it might have frozen there, Jen. Hopefully it's not the storm that's giving us issues. There we go. So you can swap over your report suite, and now you can see that we have the global Matisoff report suite in the first panel, and then in the next panel a different one, and in the next panel a different one. Now, something to point out is as you make your selection, switching your report suite, the left rail, that section over on the left of your dimensions, metrics, and segments, are going to update based on those components that are associated with your selected report suite. So this is a really quick way just to get a feel for each of the different things that are available to you as you're changing your report suite on the fly. Now on the next slide, we have a feature that I've been using a ton within Analysis Workspace, which is taking advantage of the ability to duplicate a panel and then just dragging it side by side, like you can see in the video here, so that we can compare one report suite right next to another report suite, again, side by side. So on the left, we have the web, on the right, we have the mobile app, and we can see the same data, the same dimension, the same metric, right next to each other, so I can quickly do my comparison as necessary. So the next seasoned user feature that we released is all tied around Attribution IQ. Now, for those of you that are already familiar with Attribution IQ, you won't hear too much. There won't be anything new around how powerful this feature can be, but what you will get excited about are some of the new features that came out just last month. And so those Attribution IQ improvements are focused on ensuring that you can attribute your metrics to the right set of values within virtually any dimension within Analysis Workspace. And so let's see. So the next slide will give you the first place that you can actually apply Attribution IQ. Now, you're probably already familiar, but if you're not, you can click Modify Attribution Model, and you can choose any attribution model just like I'm doing here in the video. But what's new is this custom look back window where you can select any type of or length of window up to, I think, 90 days, so that and associate that look back window to any model that you select within Attribution IQ. Now, this is especially important because it ensures that depending on your business, you know, if you're selling socks, the attribution window doesn't need to be extremely long. The look back window, we're not, you know, it's not taking months and months to decide, oh, well, you know, what pair of socks should I buy, unless they're really, really fancy socks with Bluetooth built in. But if they are, you know, if you're selling a car or a big ticket item, then you'll want there will be a longer consideration period, and therefore you'll want to take advantage of a longer look back window. Now, something that is a little more technical that you'll need to, that you'll be excited to hear about is with these custom look back windows, we're actually looking back, and you can see I set 12 weeks as the look back window here. We're looking at each individual metric, each individual online order that happened, and going back 12 weeks prior to it. So if there was an online order today, we would go back 12 weeks prior to that to align the attribution to that metric or that specific order. And if there was an online order 3 weeks ago, we would go 12 weeks back prior to 3 weeks ago in order to properly import those the associated dimensions and dimensional items for that order. So what that does is it really helps ensure that you have a limited number of none values within your dimension. So on the next slide, we have another way that you can instantiate Attribution IQ and therefore custom look back models, or the custom look back window, which is comparing your attribution model. And so instead of modifying, I've selected compare, and you can see two new columns add within Workspace. One with your comparison column, and then also a percent change. So just another way to take advantage of custom look back windows. What we've seen customers doing lately is actually seeing how the data changes as you stretch out your custom look back window from the same metric with the same model, so that you can see exactly what the details are providing you. On the next slide, we have the last place to apply attribution IQ and therefore custom look back windows as well, which is right here within the calculated metric builder. When you drag over a metric, just simply click the gear and use a non-default attribution model. And once again, you have that option to choose a different model or custom look back window. All right, so the next feature that I'm really excited about is the algorithmic attribution model. This model is reserved just for customers of Adobe Analytics that are using the Analytics Ultimate SKU. And that algorithmic model is moving way beyond all of the rules-based attribution IQ models and taking advantage of an algorithmic model as well. Our customers that are familiar with Data Workbench will get especially excited about this, because prior to this release, that was the only place that you could go in order to get an algorithmic attribution model. Now, there's one important thing that I forgot to mention across everything associated with attribution IQ is certainly all of these features are available for the marketing channel dimension, which is what you're seeing, but you can also apply them to virtually any other dimension. That means if you want to compare and contrast search engine, paid search engine keywords, you would be able to do that as well and see how different paid search keywords are being clicked throughout the customer journey. Similarly, you could apply it to product information, internal campaigns, really anything within, within your workspace implementation. All right, so Jen, why don't you take us through the next one?
Awesome, thanks, Eric. So, and like the features that Eric just mentioned have been asked for so long. I think multiple report suites, I don't know if he mentioned this, that was the #1 feature request. Probably day 2 of Workspace being live, that was something that we were getting asked for. So super excited to have delivered those to the product. All right, next up is the A for T panel. So for those that don't know, A for T stands for Analytics for Target. And it's the integration that joins the data sources for those 2 products, allowing for rich test analysis to occur in analytics. Now, to date, lift and confidence metrics, which are key for test analysis, have only been available in our legacy reports and analytics UI, or you'd have to pull data out and calculate them yourselves in something like Excel. But with the new panel, this is no longer the case. So through the left rail or in the blank panel, you'll now see Analytics for Target. And this is going to allow you to analyze your target tests in full in Analysis Workspace. Now, like our other panels, the A for T panel starts with a builder state where you can choose a few inputs, starting with the target activity or test that you want to analyze. Now, what you're seeing here is actually a new component within Workspace that we built to support this panel. You can either select your activity or experience from the dropdown, or you can bring it over from the left rail. This is a component that we plan to bring elsewhere into Workspace to really reduce the learning curve of working with the left rail when selecting your components. So more on that a little later. Once you've finished filling out your inputs here, you'll click Build, and a panel will be rendered for the information that you selected. So you can choose up to 3 standard success metrics, and for each one, we'll output a table, a conversion trend, and we'll repeat that for metrics 2 and 3. So you're seeing here the experience that is the control is bolded, and the variants are listed in the table. Now, the key columns that have been added to Workspace to support this analysis are lift and confidence. Lift compares the variance to the control, and confidence is the likelihood that the results would be repeated if the test was duplicated and run again. So we've applied conditional formatting so you can quickly eyeball this table and see which experience is driving the results that you're looking for. Down below, we've added in a conversion rate trend for each of those experiences across the metric. And as usual, the user can always change the granularity of this chart using the visualization setting shown here. Metrics 2 and 3, as I mentioned, are repeated down below in a table and a graph as well. So from here, this panel behaves just like any other panel in Workspace, and users can continue to build out additional analysis that will help analyze the test and pick a winner. I want to mention that in addition to the panel, we also have added more A4T data into analytics through the support of additional target activity types. Last month, we added support for auto-allocate tests, which are Sensei-based activity types in Target. And next month, we'll also be adding in support for auto-target tests as well. So this means that there's going to be even more target activities available to Workspace to analyze in this panel. So for those that have both Analytics and Target, hopefully this is very welcome news for you and you're able to analyze your tests even further within Workspace now. So utilizing all the great features that we just talked about, you're ready to now kind of share your insights out to your organization. Now, project sharing has always been available under our Share Project menu, but the recipients that you could share the project to were pretty much one size fits all. With new project sharing roles, we now give you the opportunity to put recipients into 3 different roles, depending on the project experience that you want them to receive. The Can Edit group is useful if you want to give recipients the ability to co-edit with you or co-manage the project so they can save their changes over your version or add more recipients to the share list. The Can Duplicate role will show you the experience that non-admins have really had to date. These folks can save as off of your project to create their own version, but they won't be able to save their changes to your version. They also can't modify the share list, but otherwise they have full control over the left rail and the interactions in the project that you share to them. The final role is Can View. And this is the most limited project experience you can give to somebody. This role is useful if you want to share a project to users that are either new to Adobe Analytics or Analysis Workspace, and you want them to just start getting familiar with data without overwhelming them with all the options in Workspace. Now, before I show you what each of those experiences look like, I also wanted to add that when we introduced these roles, we also enabled all users to be able to share to groups. So in the past, only admins could share to groups. Now, non-admins can share to groups that they are a member of, with the exception of sharing to all. So this should expand the ability of any editor to share to the right group, whether it be a single user or a group that's been defined. So let's take a look at what these roles look like when the project is opened. So a project was shared to me as an editor, and you'll see here that I can save over the project. I can further share the project by adding more recipients, and I can fully interact in the project as if it was one that I built myself. I have the left rail, and I can do all that I would need to do within the canvas in the middle. With the duplicate experience, there's a couple things that change. On its surface, it looks the same as an editor, but duplicators cannot save over the project, and they cannot further share the project to other recipients. And as I mentioned, this is the experience that non-admins had with shared projects to date. So this should be the most familiar to the large majority of your users. Now, the last role is the most visually different, and this is the view role, and also called read-only projects. So this removes much of the interaction in Workspace and leaves just a little bit of interactivity, namely the drop-down filters that an editor has curated into the experience, as well as some other hover interactions within the project. We disabled the ability to change the report suite as well as the date range. The interactions we chose to keep in this experience are ones that largely won't change the data unless it's in a controlled way. So if the editor has built in a drop-down filter, then they have built in a controlled interaction that end user can then experience. So I'll talk about view-only projects in a bit more depth shortly, but these new roles are visible in the project list and the project manager. So if you're wondering what level of access you have to a project, you can always check it out there. And then you can reach out to the owner of the project, which is stated in the top right of the project when you're in Workspace, and ask them for a higher level access if you need it. All right, so let's pivot a little bit into some features that are helpful for enabling new users to self-serve. So, as analysts that are working with these folks, we know that there's many teams in your organization that may be coming to you to provide data to them to support their decision making. And more often than not, those teams come to you with questions and ask for help rather than trying to answer the questions on their own or look at the data on their own. So with these features, we really want to empower you as analysts to enable new users of Analysis Workspace to self-serve and start answering the questions they have of data on their own. So we just talked about view-only projects, but I wanted to start this section by reiterating that. We recommend sharing projects as view-only to this group of new or novice users. It really limits the things they can do in Workspace so they don't become overwhelmed. We know Workspace has a higher learning curve, and the left rail definitely contributes to that, having to not only learn a new tool, but also learn a new set of data and data structure and how to bring things in to build a table can be a lot. So with view-only projects, it really provides these users with a much more simplified approach to just getting data insights. As the user builds their confidence through view-only projects, then encourage them to explore the training tutorial that we've provided through the new project modal. This training tutorial walks users through common Workspace terminology and shows them how to build their very first project. So we talk in this template about foundational terms like what is a panel, what is a visualization. We also walk them through the different component types, starting with what a dimension is and then leading into what a metric is. And throughout, we have them answer key business questions and interact in the project to answer them. We have about 10 or 11 steps built in here, and we also have built in some continued learning so they can learn about deeper visualizations like fallout and flow. And we provide an answer key at the bottom so they can check their work against the actual answers to the business questions that we laid out. One tip, if you're an analyst on the call, is that you can save versions of this template. So we've put it in here based on just out-of-the-box data, but you can go ahead and modify it to meet your business needs. So if there's specific EVARs or metrics that relate more to your business, go ahead and modify the template and then save it as a template. And this will pop it into the new project list as a custom template. So rather than starting from the one Adobe provided, instead you could have your users start from the custom templates that you've built. And notice here we've created a few different ones depending on the use cases and the business questions that need to be answered. One for internal search analysis and another for marketing analysis. You could even build a training curriculum around this. So set up all these different templates and almost make it a game with your users. Through our usage analytics tip that we've shared over the past couple of years, you can actually measure who at your organization, which users are opening these templates and create a learning game around it and gamify this to get people to be interested in learning Workspace and learning these different analysis approaches. Now, as people become more familiar with Workspace through view-only projects and the training curriculum that you put together for them, you can increase their role over time as they become more comfortable. So you can promote them from being a viewer to a duplicator to eventually an editor as they become stronger in Workspace. Once they've reached at least the duplicate role, you can let them explore and answer business questions on their own using another new panel that we've added called Quick Insights. The Quick Insights panel was built for the novice user who needs quick answers to business questions, but maybe aren't super familiar with Workspace itself. We have some guides here that step them through some of that training tutorial content that I just showed you, but overlaid into the product. And actually, these guides are another thing that we plan on carrying to other parts of the product as well. So you should see those start to pop up from time to time to help you learn different aspects of Workspace a bit more. So within the Quick Insights panel, users build out their business questions by selecting from the drop-downs. And as they make their selection, the table and chart below will automatically update. So they don't need to, learn how to build a table or then add a visualization on top. They essentially fill out what I like to call the Mad Libs generator up above, and it will automatically create down below for them. They have the option to add segments as well, choosing between stacking or combining the segments or comparing them side by side. And they can also add in breakdowns from here too. So if their business question is not only about marketing channels, but maybe marketing channels and then the pages people visited, they can easily add that to their question and it will be added down below. With the visualization, one thing we did here in the Quick Insights panel is we up-leveled the visualization type selector. So typically this lives under the gear, but we put it here in the header so it's a little bit more obvious for these users, and they can quickly on the fly change their visualization from a bar graph to maybe a tree map, depending on what type of insights they're trying to gather from the data. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but I never used the left rail once when I was using the Quick Insights Builder. We really, like I mentioned earlier, want to try to make Workspace more intuitive where we can. So these drop downs that are in the Quick Insights panel and the A4T panel function both as a drop down with curated components in their list, and also as a drop zone. So users that are familiar with the left rail can also drag and drop into them. And these combo components are things that we're going to be carrying through to other parts of the product to make it a bit more useful and easy to get to the end analysis without having to use the left rail if you don't need to. So that wraps up the new user features. So with that, I'll turn it over to Eric.
All right, thanks, Jen. I love that you haven't presented in 4 months or 5 months, and you got a massive, huge set of slides to present right in a row there. So you did great. Keep it up.
Thanks.
So as Jen mentioned, we also want to be thinking about executives and making sure that they're empowered with data when and where they need it. And so what this means is, especially with all of the quarantines going on these days, executives need to be able to access regardless of what device they're on or which room in their quarantined house they have and need access to data. And so the really exciting set of new features and really basically its own product that was just released earlier this year is our dashboards mobile application. So on the next slide, I'll give you a quick walkthrough starting from the iOS homepage. And as you can see, the Adobe Analytics dashboards app is available for both iOS and Android, and you have access to tap into really any set of data that lives within your report suite. And so you can create a scorecard, which I'll show you on the next slide once we're done going through here, but you can see that you can tap into the trend of any metric and break it down by any predefined set of items. and even apply a segment and change your time frame associated with them as well. And the great thing about this is how seamless and easy it is to interact with. Now, the second that a scorecard or a dashboard is shared to another user, they'll be able to pick it up right within their mobile app and tap into that data. And you'll also notice that there's a ton of ways in which to make that data more friendly for the end user. You'll notice that we try to avoid some of the more technical terms within the product around breakdowns and segmentation, and tried to make it a little bit more friendly. And that was based on a wealth of user research that we performed to make sure that executives got from the product what they needed. So on the next screen, something that you'll see is the setup process for creating a mobile scorecard. We have a new template called Blank Mobile Scorecard, and it's really just simply a drag and drop. You pick your report suite and start dragging and dropping the metrics for the home screen. And then again, drag and drop any dimensions that need to be available to break down that metric. And so you can see here, I've dragged over a marketing channel. You can see it on the right. You can also pull in any dimensions from that dropdown as well, and move them up and down so you can prioritize them within the UI. You'll also notice that there's a pencil next to each of those dimensions, so you can rename them just for this specific project. If you know that the person or the group that you're sharing it to doesn't understand the concept of marketing channels, but calls them ad channels, for example, you could rename it, and then right in the UI within that mobile project, it'll speak the same language that the end user speaks as well. And this is a really important piece of developing your scorecards for the executive user, so that, again, you're creating the experience that they're expecting. And so you can see the last piece that I built in there was just dragging it in a few segments. So on the next screen, you'll get a feel for the very most important piece, which is not only saving your scorecard, but actually sharing it to others within your organization. It works the same way that you saw earlier that Jen shared around project sharing roles, in that you can choose who to share access to this scorecard. So you can see I'm going to drop in Jen's name there, and then as soon as I hit share, she can open up her mobile app and begin her analysis. Let's see. That is really everything that we had to share today. So hopefully on the next slide, you'll get a feel for everything that we covered in terms of our recap. There's a lot of words on here. You can see that for seasoned users, we focused on the analytics for target panel, multiple report suites, all of the great attribution IQ improvements, and of course, those all important project sharing roles. For new users, we're highly recommending that customers begin taking advantage of view-only projects, as well as the new training tutorial template, which personally I love because it's color-coded and everything, as well as the quick insights panel, so that you can begin using your natural language to build your own visualizations as a new user. For executives, once again, we've got that dashboard's mobile app and the scorecard builder. Couple other things to mention. You can stay on top of new features just like these as they're released by viewing this Spark page. We've tried to make it nice and easy for you to access, adobe.ly/AA releases, all lowercase, and you'll see a list of every single feature, especially the big ones that have been released over the past 12 months. And we've got videos and images and links to documentation, everything you would want to access. The other way to keep on top of our latest and greatest is by subscribing to the Adobe Analytics YouTube channel. This is one that we make sure we update every single time there's a new feature, but we're also constantly releasing new videos of just simply topics that we see patterns in people asking questions about. Jen, I think there might have been one extra item that you wanted to talk about for our last slide, and then we can, Adam, kick it back on over to you to close us out.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So one thing that we've been doing as an analytics business is shifting away from a fixed monthly release schedule so that we can release features more fluidly and rapidly to you guys throughout the course of the year. So you may have noticed at the beginning of this year, some features have released not, on the third Thursday of a month, as you've come to expect, and that's really the reason for it. This more fluid release approach is allowing us to get features in your hands faster, but also ensure that they're much more hardened before they are fully released to everyone. So if you do ever see a feature that's listed as in limited testing, that's what that is referring to. We tend to keep our releases over this fluid time period to just a couple weeks. So hopefully you guys see a difference in both quality of the product and the speed at which we're getting new features in your hands over time following this new process. So thank you so much again for your time and for coming. And Adam, we'll turn it back over to you to open it up for questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jen and Eric. This was a first for me. You guys are in a monsoon and I have a sunny day here in Chicago, and I actually lost internet. So I lost the ability to see some of the questions that came in, but Eric and Jen have been awesome at already answering some questions online. So what I thought I might do is, Jen and Eric, are there any questions that you answered already that you think would be worth repeating before we dive into some new ones? I don't know if you want to take a quick scan and see if there's one
I'm going to scan through
apply to everybody.
We were furiously trying to answer questions while presenting, so I'll have to remember if there's anything else that's worth sharing.
Well, I'll shout out one or two while we've got it, unless, Jen, there's one you want to talk about.
Yeah, there's one around the A4T panel, and are there plans to allow A4T panel to leverage non-standard metrics, which I think means calculated metrics? That is a backlogged item. So currently it supports all of the out-of-the-box metrics as well as your 1,000 custom events. It supports use cases like revenue per visit, RPV, conversion rate, but it doesn't support things like average order value, anything that is a calculation. That's something that we'll need to work on at a reporting engine layer to support. It just gets into the complexities of the lift and confidence calculations. So I did want to answer that one. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So there are a lot of questions coming in now, but go ahead, Jen.
Okay, one more that I actually meant to mention when I was covering it is project sharing roles. I see a note in here, can only be at a user level rather than a project level. So right now the sharing roles are related to project sharing only, and the experience that someone has when they open a project. They don't scale to other segments or other facets of working in Adobe Analytics, but we'll continue to listen for that feedback from you guys. In the meantime, your user management of, setting someone up as an admin or a non-admin and giving them different product profiles is going to be the primary way to control their level of access to analytics.
So Jen, related to that, we just got a question. Yeah, on sharing roles, if I get an alert, the report linked is now a view-only project. Is that a bug or a feature? I miss being able to drag items into these tables.
So great question. If you receive a project link and you are not explicitly shared to or put into a role, if you're an admin, you will get the can edit experience by default. If you are a non-admin, you will get the can duplicate experience by default. We actually released with can view being the default, but we heard very quickly that that was not the right decision. So within maybe 4 days of release, we changed that behavior. So if you are receiving a link and you see can view and the person did not share it to you that way, then that is a bug. But we haven't heard about that since release. So definitely check back and see if that's still your experience.
So Jen, there seems to be a couple of questions, Jen and Eric, about folders. One is highlighting the folders question. It'd be really great if we could organize in folders, and someone else had said we have 400 dashboards. Do you have any advice on organizing?
Eric, I'd be curious about your advice for organizing, but I can say from a product perspective, we are exploring new ways to show the workspace project list. I can't promise folders, but we know organization is super top of mind for you guys, so it is for us as well. And today, we do recommend using tags to group your projects together. And we'll be working tags more into that landing page as we iterate on it further.
Yeah, that was exactly going to be my recommendation too. Jen was starting to think about taking advantage of tags today, even setting a organization-wide standard for how projects should be defined, and then having admins go in occasionally and just making sure, okay, are they following that standard? Adam, actually, I'd be kind of curious if that's something that you've been bumping into, you know, with your history working within Workspace and the Adobe Analytics world as well, if you've got anything to add.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think people underutilize tags, and there's a blog post that I even wrote many years ago around actually tagging the elements that are within either a project or a calculated metric or a segment with the elements in them, because then you can actually do a search by tag and say, I want to look for any project that has, for example, success event 1 or success event 10. And then it's a little bit of work up front, but it really pays dividends down the road. But I agree with what you guys are saying. Just it's kind of a governance thing. So one other question that came in is someone's really loving the A for T in Workspace, and they just wanted to clarify, did I hear that auto allocation is now available for A for T campaigns?
Yes, you did, Chris. We're super excited that auto allocate traffic allocation within Target, those activities are now available for A for T, and a quick glimpse into a release very, very, very soon, I think later this month. You'll also see auto target activities available for A for T as well, which we're really, really excited about.
Another comment came in is scorecards have a unique view of, that allows you to dive further into a single metric. Are there thoughts to bring that type of interaction into Workspace projects as well? So I think they're saying that they like the mobile experience that you guys created that you just showed. Is there a way to have something similar in Workspace?
Oh, that's a good question. So that's one that today is possible through, or is mostly possible through virtual report suites, giving you the opportunity to rename components. Though I think we took it a little bit of a step further within the mobile app, the dashboards app there. So hopefully a virtual report suite, if you kind of click through as you're creating it to the curation step within virtual report suites, you should be able to see the opportunity to rename some of the components that you drag and drop into that virtual report suite. So that's certainly one way to take advantage of that common language concept. But in terms of renaming, for example, segments to filters or something like that, that isn't something that's available today.
Another question we have here is there a way to change the default report suite that populates data in a new Workspace report?
So the report suite that we select right now is based on recency. So the most recent one that you've used is the one that will auto-populate. Currently, there's no way to set your default report suite, but we are exploring adding in user permissions to control various things throughout Workspace, including what you want your default suite to be. So that's something we're researching.
And then another question, are there plans to allow for A for T panel to leverage non-standard metrics? And then someone also added to that, what about plans for custom metrics performing calculations or looking at orders specifically segmented by the product being purchased? Currently hinders us from using this panel today despite really wanting to do so.
I'll admit I lost you somewhere along there. There was a few questions in that. The first one I mentioned earlier, though, the calculated metrics are not currently supported. That is something that we would have to improve on our back end. So at the moment, use cases like conversion rate and revenue per visitor are supported, as well as your 1,000 custom events and all the out-of-the-box data points.
Okay, and then the most popular question, which I think might be a little bit unrelated to the content, but it got a lot of votes up here, is are there plans to improve real time to make it actual real time features? So I know it's not related to this release, but that's the most popular question.
Yeah. So real time is something that we do eventually want to integrate into Workspace, but given the focus right now on Adobe Analytics integrating with the Experience platform and standing up Customer Journey Analytics, which is our new product that works with cross-channel data. I think we're going to be focusing there. If there's ways that platform can help power real-time use cases, we're certainly going to be exploring them.
Okay. Well, I think the rest of the questions are ones that I'll provide you. I think it's always, whenever people get Jen and Eric on a line, they always want to ask every feature that they want. And so I know what it's like to be Eric and Jen. So I think I wanted to kind of focus on the questions that were related to what you shared today. But I will go ahead and share the full set of questions with Eric and Jen, and they'll have an opportunity to answer those. So once again, I really want to thank you both for joining. Amazing new features in Adobe Analytics, and we're really excited to take advantage of some of these. And thank you both so much for coming on to the SDEC and sharing your wisdom.
Our pleasure. Thank you so much, Adam. Thanks
Yeah,
everyone for joining.
Thanks everyone.
Okay, bye everyone.